Redditors who did it with a Cornstar off camera. How freaky was it? Story 1. I have done it with Carmen Calloway. This is her stage name, by the way, not her actual name, but her name on Tinder was her actual name. I used to live in the Hollywood area, and she and I matched up on Tinder. I actually matched with a few other Cornstars on Tinder while living there, to be honest. Most of the time I recognized them right away, but most weren't really looking for dates. They were more interested in getting people to subscribe to their social media. But strangely enough, I hadn't seen any of Carmen's work up to that point. We met up and had our date. It was a fun time. She's truthfully a very sweet girl. She dresses exceedingly cute and loves pink. We didn't exactly hit it off in a meaningful way. She was hesitant to talk about work, so we talked about other things. It went well enough for her to invite me back to her place, and we ended up having some really mind-blowing banging sessions. I remember thinking during the experience that she was almost too good at this. It felt professional. She is a very small, petite, flexible girl. She wasn't the first girl with those physical qualities that I had slept with, but she was definitely the first that utilized them in very creative and performative ways. I went home very satisfied the following afternoon, after a few more rounds of pounding. We texted for a couple weeks after, and she was very dodgy about a second date. Every time I suggested hanging out, she'd say she needed to see what plans she had or might be working, and that she'd get back to me later. Eventually, she told me a second date probably wasn't a good idea. I asked why, and she said she didn't think she was ready for a relationship, and she was in an odd spot in her career. That was when she gave me her stage name and told me to Google her before hanging up. So I did, and furiously soloed off to a few of her videos that I found, and texted her to assure her that I didn't care that she was a corn actress. I was already in a few open relationships at that point, so I was able to separate physical intimacy and feelings, so I'm not the jealous type, but she never texted back. She did send me a friend request on all my social media though, and we still talk occasionally there. She's a sweetheart, and she is really good in bed. 10 out of 10, would highly recommend. Before we continue, do us a quick favor, smash that like button and subscribe to support our channel. Story 2. I'm a woman and I hooked up with a now famous male Cornstar before he blew up. He was definitely well endowed, like, wow, but had no clue how to use it. Watching his scenes now, it's still all about his size, not his skill. The actresses carry the whole thing. And he still says that same awkward oh yeah he used to. It was a turnoff then, and it still is a turnoff now. Story 3. I've been with a few guys who have posted amateur videos on certain sites. One in particular was really good. We clicked straight away and were still in touch. The others went from disappointing to pretty frigging good. I came across a gay couple online who had quite a few videos of themselves banging on a site, and to my surprise and low-key excitement, I found out they lived just a few miles from me. Curiosity got the better of me, so I reached out. Things moved fast, and before I knew it, I was heading over to their place for what would be my first ever threescore. It was, well, conflicting. It started out pretty well. They were a good-looking couple in their mid-40s, and after sharing a coffee and some easy conversation to break the ice, we headed upstairs for the main event. At first, I just watched them warm each other up, getting into the mood while I stayed on standby, keeping myself ready. Then, with a welcoming smile, they finally waved me in. As the encounter progressed, it became apparent that there was a spark between me and one of the pair. He was really good looking though. His partner wasn't exactly ugly either, and while I didn't consider myself much of a looker, I've got a knack with my mouth, which he definitely appreciated. I'll be honest, I took a bit of a shine to him. Thought I was keeping it under wraps, but the other guy definitely picked up on it, probably from how his partner was acting. After that, the atmosphere got a little tense. I really tried to be fair, but it eventually, without anyone actually saying anything, the mood felt aggressive and descended into a bit of semi-rough stuff between me and the aggrieved guy. This further descended from tussling to us having a really hot, almost hate bang with the object of both our affections urging both of us on and soloing himself while doing so. After we two were done with each other, we turned out attention to him. Afterwards, it was a little awkward as we all showered and cleaned up. At the post-bang coffee we had, they were both perfectly lovely and friendly, but you could still sense something. The aggrieved guy saw me out, and when his partner was out of earshot asked, "Go on, you can say you fancied him more, didn't you?" I said yeah, but only because he was taking a heavy interest in me, or some crap like that. He laughed, we kissed, and I drove home, parting on perfectly friendly and cordial terms. Pointedly though, I have never been asked back or even contacted by them, though they live pretty close by. Like I said, it was pretty friggin' hot, but at the same time, awkward and uncomfortable, and I haven't rushed into 3 scores since. Story 4. In the mid-1990s, I worked in Los Angeles as an assistant for a photographer who shot for a corn magazine. A lot of the models were also making corn films. As the assistant, I took care of a lot of the loose ends that the photographer didn't feel like dealing with. Unlike some people, I always try to treat everyone I work with respect. That's just how I was raised. I was 25 at the time. We did a shoot with a model who was also a fairly popular corn actress. She was a great model, took direction well, turned it on, and clearly loved attention from the camera. She was also hot as hell but still sweet. We shot probably 20 rolls or so of 35mm and a handful of 120. When we were all done, I started packing up all the gear and cleaning up. Usually, if the model didn't drive themselves, they will call someone or have arranged for someone to pick them up. She was just kind of milling about like she was waiting for someone. We got everything done, and she was still there. So, I asked her if she needed a ride, and she said yes, telling me where she lived. It wasn't anywhere near my place, but whatever, her place was kind of close to the film lab. So I told her I had to drop off some film to be processed first, but I could give her a ride afterward. Traffic was terrible, so it took way longer than it should have to get to the film lab, but we made it just in time for the cutoff. The whole way we talked about what it's like moving out here from the Midwest, what our parents think about our jobs, and stuff like that. My parents don't really know what kind of photographer I work for, but she told me her parents basically disowned her. By the time we got back in the car and were heading to her place, it was pretty late, and I was starving. She was hungry too, apparently, because she asked if I wanted to stop and grab some Thai food from a spot down the street. Then she invited me back to her place to eat. What the hell? I'm okay looking, but definitely not in her league. Still, I was having a good time, so I figured I'd just roll with it. We ate our napalm-spiced Thai food, drank a couple of beers, and by the time we finished, it was pretty late. She told me I could stay the night, and we could watch The Breakfast Club on VHS, something we'd both mentioned loving earlier. I just had to pick up the film test strips when the lab opened at 10, and since her place was closer anyway, why not? I sat on the couch, she started the movie, and then she sat right next to me, really close. And then we banged. We didn't even make it through the opening credits. It was incredible. She was really into it. I was definitely into it. She told me later that she was attracted to me because I seemed interested in her as a person and was nice to her, unlike the guys she worked with. We woke up the next morning, and I took a quick shower before heading over to the film lab. We ended up dating for almost 2 years. I even brought her back home to meet my parents. In the end, though, I realized I didn't want to be with someone working in corn, while she still believed it was her path to success. Story 5. Not a corn star, but I accidentally ended up dating an S-worker once. She was this incredibly sweet Korean girl living in LA. I was in the military at the time, so I could only see her maybe every other weekend. Every time I showed up, she'd greet me at the door in lingerie with the most amazing food cooking for me, and she insisted I eat first while she gave me the best massage of my life. Well, we dated for a few months, but as I got hanging around her and her friends, I noticed something. They all claim to work as beauticians, which from what I know is usually commission-based. They have to rent their own stalls at the salon and rely heavily on tips, so once all that's deducted, a lot of them are barely making minimum wage. But something didn't add up. These Korean chicks were always dressed in the latest designer clothes, hitting up clubs with cover charges that cost more than I made in a week, rocking dresses that were worth more than my monthly paycheck. And then there was the purse. She'd casually pull it out, packed with high-denomination bills, like it was no big deal. At first, I just thought maybe they had rich families or were just really good at budgeting, but eventually the pieces started to click. Yeah, I was dating an S-worker and hanging out with her coworkers. At first, my visceral reaction was disgust. I had been sleeping with somebody who sells themselves to up to 4 or 5 clients on a busy night, but it quickly turned to a deep emotional hurt that for 6 months what I had assumed was a genuine relationship with a group of really nice people was based on a lie. I broke up with her and never spoke to any of them again. I was in a really dark emotional place at the time, and finding out a group of people who I had come to rely on as my only connection to the rest of normal civilian life was basically just a giant charade was really not cool. Story 6. It was last December in Playa del Carmen. I was at some crappy tourist bar with 2 female friends. They were giving free tequila shots to any girl who danced on the bar for 5 minutes. One of my friends saw this 10 out of 10 girl approach the bar to get up. She commented on how hot she was and then followed her up there. She was an extremely average dancer, but honestly, her hotness more than compensated for it. After we all took the free drinks, my friend invited her and the 3 guys she was with back to our table. Since she came with 3 dudes, I didn't think for a second that I had any kind of shot with her. I made polite conversation with her guy friends and didn't engage with her that much. In hindsight, this absolutely worked to my advantage. She kept looking in my direction, but I still convinced myself that she was just trying to be friendly. I found out later that she discreetly asked one of her friends at the table if they thought I was gay. I guess she wasn't used to guys not paying attention to her. If I knew then that she was interested, I probably would have messed it up somehow. After the crappy bar, we all moved on to a crappy club where she flirted with random guys and I continued to deny her attention, still thought I had no chance. After that crappy club, we all walked to another one. On the walk there, I began to believe. We linked our arms and strolled alongside each other. We got a drink together at the next bar and then started making out almost immediately afterwards. I suggested that we leave together, and she suggested going back to her Airbnb. On the walk home, I asked her what she did for work. She hesitated for a second before saying that she was a corn actress. She didn't seem embarrassed. She just seemed to want to savor the reaction. I tried to act more curious than surprised, but I was actually in shock. I'm just glad that for some reason, it didn't occur to me to seem intimidated by the prospect of doing it with a person that has hundreds, if not thousands of videos online. Anyway, I'm getting tired of my own story here, but we ended up banging on a lounge chair on the rooftop of her Airbnb because she had a single bed in a shared bedroom. I lay down on my back, and she did this slow slide over my face into 69ing. It was hands down the best blowy ever. We met up another 4 times over the remaining 5 nights of my stay there, and I honestly can't believe my luck. She told me her corn name on the first night, but I had to casually ask her again a few nights later because I had forgotten it. My friends insisted. I'm very grateful to them, because she has a ridiculous number of movies for a 22-year-old and seems to be quite popular, currently top 150 in rank and more than 250 million video views on a popular site. So, overall, she was a very nice girl that was fun to hang around with. The banging was nothing like her movies, which was a relief because she overacts a bit. My general impression is that she just loves banging. She invited me back to LA, her home, to shoot some films after Mexico. But I was heading to Florida and then back to Australia, kinda regretting that I didn't change my plans. Still pinching myself though. Story 7. I haven't, but I know a guy who did. He said she was a really cool person, and they had a lot in common, but intimacy was not at all what someone would imagine. Apparently, she got into the industry pretty quickly after losing her V-card, and basically 90% of her experiences were on camera. Because of this, she didn't know how to have a natural, intimate experience with a normal person. He said if he didn't tell her what he wanted her to do, she was awkward and clueless. It's sad, to be honest. She was so used to being directed that if someone wasn't directing her, she couldn't just go with it and enjoy herself organically. Story 8. I shagged Zoe Voss a few months after she turned 18 and a few months before she went into corn. She was really horny, and I got the vibe she would be down for just about anything right away. Also, my wife and I have both made out with a different Cornstar, also before they made the career switch. It wasn't at the same time, and was way before I met my wife. Seems like they're just normal people that are maybe more attractive, sexual, and wild than average. Both of these girls had broken homes and were a little lost in life, then met the wrong person to connect them to an easy way to make money doing something they like anyway. Story 9. About 15 years ago, back when Craigslist was the go-to for all kinds of casual hookups, I answered a weird ad in the casual encounters section. The woman was looking for her muse or something like that. It sounded strange. I figured it was probably spam or I wouldn't hear back. But to my surprise, she actually replied. This was before smartphones, so we chatted on AOL Instant Messenger and swapped pictures. She was a tall, curvy blonde, definitely attractive. It turned out she was an aspiring actress, which is pretty common around here in NYC. After some back and forth, we decided to meet up. We grabbed a few drinks and agreed to have some fun. Again, she was hot and had this amazing body, but she was kind of annoying. For example, in the middle of the bar, she just burst out in song and didn't seem to be aware that everyone was staring at her. By this point, I was really horny, so I decided to live with it. We went to an adult store and I bought her a toy. Once we got back to my place, I threw on a DVD of some Corn and we watched it while we got bare, and she used the toy. We started fooling around, which was a lot of fun. It turned out that she was quite sub. After that, we remained bare and watched the Corn while chatting. She was still getting on my nerves, but my little guy was begging me, so I put her hand on my dong, and we went for round 2. We ended up getting together a few more times, but honestly, she got pretty annoying, so I decided to call it quits. The last time we hung out, I brought a bottle of wine to her place, we banged for a while, and then I left. Never reached out after that. Maybe a year later, I was looking at the Corn sites that used to exist, wherein links to short previews of videos were posted, and you'd click on one and solo off furiously until it ended. To my surprise, I came across one featuring this same woman. It was weird because she was only in her mid-20s, but the video had a MILF scenario, maybe because she was so tall they figured they could get away with it. Anyway, I looked online endlessly until I found a copy of the entire video. I used to solo off to it every once in a while as a reminder of our time together, but haven't done that in a while. Still have it though. Interestingly, I came across a preview for another video featuring her in a pretty similar scenario, and it looked like it was filmed around the same time. I never managed to find the full video, even though I tried pretty hard. Story 10. In 2009, I was able to check this off my bucket list. I was so overjoyed because it wasn't planned, but she told me. She wasn't famous or anything, but we met on the app Moco. After swapping numbers, we started texting back and forth for about a week. We'd ask each other all kinds of questions, and eventually, the conversation turned intimate. That's when she told me she'd done some Corn. Not homemade though. She even sent me links to her scenes, which were professionally produced and for sale. I was thinking, damn, I hit the jackpot. She also told me she stopped doing Corn because she was doing S-work instead, and making way more money that way. I was like, hell yeah. She gave me her working name, but I forgot it later. Still, I managed to find some of her old photos. Anyway, she said she wanted to go out to eat, but didn't have a ride. I told her I didn't mind picking her up. She said that was cool, so off I went. When I got to her place, she let me in. And wow, she was tiny, like 5 foot and probably a size 2. Anyway, we went out for dinner and drinks. Of course, I picked up the tab. As the night went on, the vibe got better and better. She started touching me and hugging me, and before long, we were full-on making out. I finally said, let's head back to your place, and she was totally on board. Once we got back, we had a few more drinks, and then, well, things really heated up. We did all the things that we could think of. We were both all over each other, one of the best I've ever had. I spent the night, and we did it 2 more times, twice at night, and 1 more time in the morning. It was the best I've ever had. I saw her a few more times, then she got into drugs and her teeth got black and bad, so I stopped seeing her, and last I heard she was busted for drugs in Florida. She was very fun though. Story 11. I've actually had 2 experiences. The first was with a French Cornstar. I'm European, but it was during an escorting session. As you'd expect, she absolutely pounded the brain out of me for 2 straight hours, doing things I didn't even know were possible. She was kind, clearly wanted to give real pleasure and enjoy herself too, but of course, it was for money. The second was more unexpected. I had a one-night stand with a girl I couldn't quite place. I kept thinking, she looks so familiar, maybe from a movie. Weeks later, it hit me. She was a Hungarian Cornstar visiting Brussels, where I live. Probably the kindest woman I've ever met. I ended up showing her around the city, took her to dinner, and we wound up back at her hotel. That night taught me the difference between banging and making love. She spent the whole night wrapped in my arms, and I in hers. I'd do it again. 20 out of 10. Not only was she stunning like a literal goddess, but she had a warmth that just melted me. Story 12. A few years ago, I was with this girl who later started doing cam girl stuff and then went on to become a corn star, which is fairly common apparently. So, I went with my buddy to visit his older brother at his college. We hit a few parties, and honestly, it made us both wish we hadn't messed around in high school and gone the community college route. We definitely felt like we missed out. I got pretty drunk that night, and ended up talking to this girl. She was shy, but an absolute bombshell. I was surprised no guys were hovering around her. We started off with some small talk stuff about the school, her classes. Turned out she was a freshman. At first, I wasn't realizing that she was flirting hard with me until my buddy texted me saying you should take her back to the dorm. I played it casual and said I was craving ice cream, so we walked to a nearby McDonald's, grabbed some, and headed back. Things escalated fast once we got to the dorm. We started making out, but I panicked for a second because I didn't have any protection. But luckily, we ended up finding some in his brother's room, and we did it, but I was too focused on staying up to actually finish. Later, she asked me to record her giving me blowy on her phone, and I got to cross the finish line and painted her on her face and chest with her tasting it. I didn't realize how lucky I was at the time. We crashed for the night, and I woke up to her getting all excited on me. So, we went at it again, this time without any protection. I know, not smart. After we were done, we exchanged numbers, but once I was back in my home state, I had zero text game, and it fizzled out pretty quickly. Still bragged to the boys about needing to get an STD test because I banged a girl. Then I found out that she did webcam stuff a few years later, and now has a good amount of corn videos. And yes, I actually do watch those videos more often than not. Top 5 performers that I default to. Most of the time I get distracted from the video and reimagine our night while I do the diddle diddle. 10 out of 10 would do it again. She was the hottest girl I ever slept with. I have no idea how the hell that ended up happening. My buddy and I haven't told anyone. We're both married now, so it's not a story we can go around bragging about now. But when we were 20 years old, it's different story. Story 13. When I knew her, she was a former corn star. She was upfront about her time in the industry before we slept together, and I was totally fine with it. The banging was great, but nothing like a corn scene, just normal, nothing too wild. We were together for about 3 months and ended things on good terms. She even told me her corn name and said it was okay to look her up. I did, and that was definitely weird. I just glanced at the thumbnails and saw her with a famously well-endowed guy, and I immediately noped out. When she asked why, I admitted I felt a little inferior. She told me to relax and just enjoy the moment. I also did it with another girl while on holiday, who ended up becoming a corn star a few years later. A few others I knew did 1 or 2 scenes after we met, plus a couple of S-workers. Those were mostly one-night stands. Story 14. Not a corn star, but an exotic dancer. She was dancing on stage and came over to talk to me. We agreed to take a dance in the back. Once there, we chatted a bit. I told her she looked a lot like my girlfriend, similar personality too, and mentioned that my girlfriend would be cool with this since we're in an open relationship. She said she had to work, so I was just there to get out of the house for a bit with a friend and hype myself up for the night. She proceeded to give me some action. We didn't exactly do it, nor did she give me a blowy, but we did a lot of other stuffs. Then we talked for a while, and she ended up giving me more dances for about 2 hours, basically for free, aside from the $40 I paid up front for 3 dances. She even let me touch and everything. The best part was when she stood up on the love seat we were sitting on, turned around, bent over with her hands on the table, and started dancing right into my face. When I came back out, my friend looked legit worried. He thought I'd gotten stuck back there and was blowing a ton of money. The staff wouldn't let him back, so he ended up befriending a few dancers after telling them he was out of cash but worried about me. Apparently, they sneak-checked on me, and then spent some time chatting with him. Then she gave me her number, and we texted for a few weeks after that. Nothing much came of it though due to distance, but it was fun nonetheless. Story 15. I wasn't planning on commenting, but since I saw a few cam girls, here goes. I was with a girl on and off for about 8 years. For various reasons, she needed to work from home and ended up getting into camming. She was pretty hot, with a kind of niche look, so she did well for herself. I joined her on cam a few times when a client wanted her to give blowy to a real dong. We even thought about posting to a site, but ultimately didn't, mainly because it would have been too easy for people to recognize her. Our intimate life didn't really change much. Like most couples, sometimes it was just simple, kind of vanilla but affectionate, and other times it got more intense, more like the stuff you'd see on Corn. It was always good though. She'd get into it like she was performing, even when it was just us. We made a lot of home videos too, though we never published any of them. Honestly, if I asked for something, she was usually down. I used to have quite a collection of her camming videos, and the ones we made together, but I eventually deleted almost all of it, except for one. That one's just too good to let go. And no, before anyone asks, I said not publishing or sharing it. Story 16. I was pretty shy, and honestly, she was even more so. Since we didn't meet through the Corn scene, she was nervous about telling me what she did for a living. I think she was genuinely relieved when I didn't freak out. On my side, I was worried I set be too vanilla for her, since she did a lot of adventurous stuffs professionally, but she kind of laughed and said something like, "I don't need to take work home with me." Once I got over my own insecurities, it was great. Not some mind-blowing cinematic experience or anything, but she was fun to hang out with, and we had a solid connection and good physical relation. So honestly, absolute win. And just to head off the inevitable questions, especially since she's out of the business now, I'm not gonna say who it was. Story 17. I had a friend who dated one for a while. She was gorgeous, total bombshell. She was funny and very easygoing. Unfortunately, she had emotional issues, and the poor guy had to break up with her. Years later, at his birthday party, one of his new coworkers didn't believe us when we joked about him dating a Corn actress. The look on his face when he saw the pictures, absolutely priceless. Oh, and she stole 10K from him. She was smart and funny, but her humor was just a mask. In reality, she was extremely insecure, neurotic, and a compulsive liar. In small doses, hearing a sexy girl saying that her red blouse is actually green might be hilarious. A girlfriend doing it 24/7, different story. My friend is like an accountant, short, glasses, almost bald, but he has that supreme confidence and charisma of the guy who knows that he can sell sand to Arabs. So, she was always afraid that he would leave her as a punishment for a tiny mistake. Story 18. It was not the mind-blowing experience I had assumed it would be. The biggest difference was that she used a couple of positions that were new to me. They weren't amazing, and after a couple times, I realized that she was playing to an imaginary camera. All in all, 8 out of 10 would bang again. Story 19. I dated a girl who seemed like she had a simple life. I later found out she was an exotic dancer, and later that she was in a few movies. Banging was great, but I don't think her career had anything to do with it. We had a great energy together that only got stronger the more we learned each other's crazy life stories. She also was bi and would get drunk and bring women home. Good memories. Story 20. There was a Cornstar in my town who was offering private meet and greets. I figured why not, and decided to reach out. We ended up meeting at my place, and honestly it started out like any regular date. Some small talk, nothing too wild. She picked up on the fact that I was a bit nervous, but she made sure I felt comfortable and took the lead when things started moving. After that, she put on a bit of a show, and I just let the experience unfold. It ended up being the best bang I've ever had. Not just because of the physical part, but because I could explore different fantasies I'd never feel comfortable bringing into a typical relationship. With her, I could be completely open and try things I'd always been curious about. Story 21. I was in an open relationship with a Cornstar and her boyfriend, who eventually became her fiancé and then husband, for a little over a year, and honestly, the intimacy was a solid 10 out of 10. Watching her videos now, though, I can tell when she's faking it. I don't think she really enjoys it as much as she pretends to anymore. She's been in the industry for years and is in her 30s now, so I imagine the idea of starting over is scary for her. Eventually, her husband started getting jealous of how close we were, and I ended up moving out, which ended our relationship. What I miss the most, though, is the kiddo and the dog. They really had my heart. Story 22. A few years ago, I met a retired corn actress through a mutual friend, and we really hit it off. Like a lot of corn actresses, she had worked intensely for about 2 years before leaving the industry. By the time we met, it had been 6 or 7 years since she'd done any scenes. Honestly, it was the most natural, playful banging I've ever had. Nothing over the top, just genuine connection. I've always wondered if a partner is truly enjoying herself or just trying to boost my ego, but with her, there was no question. She was present, knew what she liked, and gave amazing feedback. I've never felt more at ease in bed with someone. Looking back, I do wish it had turned into something more. But our schedules just never lined up, and we both agreed it wasn't going to work long term. Story 23. I recently found out that a lot of corn stars are available for private bookings via superstar service agencies. My favorite corn star, Veronica Rodriguez, charges $3,000 to $5,000 per hour, and every now and then she'll write a post on Instagram saying available in whatever city this weekend. Story 24. I hooked up with a corn star a few times. Honestly, it was amazing. But things took a turn when she got really clingy. I wanted to keep it low-key, but she threatened to tell people, and it ended up biting me in the butt. I actually had to pay her to keep quiet about it. Anyway, that was a long time ago, and I'm the President of the United States now, so it's all behind me. Story 25. I found out she was a corn star after we finished the first time. She was great in bed, but when I went home later and told my roommate, he obviously looked her up. The first video he showed me was her getting painted in the face by 4 dudes. My roommate thought this was hilarious and said, "Ooh dude, you didn't kiss her, did you? That was all before you." Took away from the experience a little. Story 26. It was a very interesting experience, definitely not what I expected. She was an older woman, probably in her 40s, and clearly into younger guys. Honestly, I usually prefer older women anyway, since they tend to be more experienced. She had a pretty high drive, but after about an hour and some change, I had to tap out, literally had to throw in the towel. All in all, if you ever get the opportunity, go for it. Just don't be shocked if it turns out completely different from what you imagined. Story 27. I dated a former online corn star from Florida a few years back. She was definitely more experienced than me, despite me being 5 years older than her. To be honest, it was amazing intimacy-wise since she had an amazing body, but the relationship side of things was a complete disappointment. Story 28. My friend and I had a wild time with these 2 girls while on vacation in Miami. About a year later, he sends me a link and goes, "Yo, check this out." Turns out it's a corno and both girls are in its separate scenes, not together. I was totally shocked because they were pretty average, like 7 out of 10, maybe 8 on a good day, and just seemed like normal party girls. The wildest part, they both used their real first names as their corn names, or at least the names they gave us could have been fake, but still. Story 29. I slept with a girl I used to go to school with. Turns out she was a webcam model, though I didn't find that out until after. We'd been friends since day one, but like everyone else after school, we drifted apart and lost touch. One night I was sitting at a bar in the city, and I felt a friendly tap on my shoulder. Super random. It was her. We ended up catching up for hours, just talking and laughing like no time had passed. Eventually, it led back to the hotel room. The banging was pretty standard one-night stand stuff. Nothing wild or amazing, but nothing dreadful. The funny part is, I didn't even find out what she did until later. I mentioned to a friend that I saw her, didn't even mention we hooked up, and he goes, "You'll never guess what she does now." And that's how I found out. Story 30. I once told a woman I was a corn star and a male exotic dancer. At the time, I was working at a women's clothing store, and for some reason, we let people leave stacks of flyers at the register for customers to take. One day, someone dropped off flyers for a male dance show. I thought it was hilarious. So when I was ringing people up, I'd casually glance at the flyers so customers would notice them too. This one regular customer caught on, looked at the flyer after I did, grabbed one and said, I knew you were a dancer. Will you be performing at this one? I played along and said, nah, I've got a scene to shoot that night. Her jaw dropped. Next time she came in, we exchanged numbers. Not long after, we hooked up. Story 31. So, I've had 4 experiences with 3 girls. One was an international Cornstar touring through my city, a surprisingly tall blonde with a Ukrainian accent. I saw her again a year later when she came back. One does corn that's available on the web if you search for my country. And the third was part of a 3-score, and she's recently started working for a popular site in the States. First time with the Ukrainian was the best. 2 glorious hours. We chatted, drank, she slipped into something more comfortable and then rocked my world. Great experience. Have a few photos to help remember this. Bye. Next time was not so great. Not sure if she was tired or whatever, but she seemed to be just going through the motions. Very much an autopilot shag. The local boutique Cornstar was a very ordinary experience. Saw her while she was battling a cold and her energy level reflected that. Very selfish too. I did much more of the work. Bit hard to remember the details of the last one. It was an entertaining blur of 2 girls at the same time. She's since plastic fantastic up in a big way, so I'm glad I saw her when I did. Story 32. A while back, I was casually seeing someone who'd done a few shoots. She was an English PhD student, pretty punky with a nerdy streak, and strapped for cash. That led her to do some scenes with an alt-corn company based in NYC at the time. Her scenes really played up that mix of punk and nerd vibes. In person, the banging was pretty normal. She was good, but not mind-blowing. Attractive enough, but nothing super crazy. One memorable moment was when we actually watched one of her scenes together while banging, which was kind of a cool, surreal experience. Overall, she was a cool, very active woman in bed. We stayed in touch for a while, but once she landed a job after finishing her PhD, she moved away and we lost contact ages ago. Story 33. I used to do corn camera work, and trust me, the last thing any one of the actors or actresses want to do after being on set is bang again. The few I've decided to go out with, both guys and girls, see it as a chore, not fun. There was this one chick who actually complimented me on my technique in bed though and said that I should teach the guys on set some so that they can actually get her and the other girls reach the peak without the chemical help. As an aside, there's the other thing about working in corn. Ain't no way in hell I'm taking that drug to give me a massive stiffy all day. Nope, not gonna do it. I am not sticking a needle in my dong. I don't care how much you're paying me, just know. I got mass respect for the guys and gals on screen, but it isn't for me. Story 34. My partner's an amateur corn star with a small following. Physical relation with them is great. They're incredibly responsive and have a real talent for reading subtle body language and changes in tone. Plus, they're super hot and know exactly how to put on a show, which is a nice bonus. At the same time, it's pretty normal like doing it with anyone else. Just better executed. There's still the usual stuff. Limbs falling asleep, having to pause to turn or sneeze, and all those little imperfect moments that keep it real. I'm sure a big part of this good banging comes down to our chemistry and shared tastes, but honestly, I think they have a better awareness of their body, how it moves and looks while doing it than most people. That's probably what drew them to corn in the first place. I don't think they picked it up from filming videos. They genuinely just love banging. It's like their second favorite hobby. The first is banjo. Story 35. I was at a bar in Cleveland and saw one of my all-time favorite performers. She was one of those almost stars. I had our server send over a plate of the greasiest, messiest nachos he could. When she got them, he pointed at me. We made eye contact, and I raised my glass. She brought the nachos over and hung out with my friends and I for the rest of the night. We exchanged numbers and my group headed back home. On the train ride, she texted me asking for my address. By the time we got there, she was already waiting. I was visiting friends from high school, a married couple, and staying with them. We had to carry the husband to bed, as he had had way too much to drink. The 3 of us sat up for another bottle of wine and some story swapping. Once his wife went to bed, the star and I went to the guest room and proceeded to pop the air mattress I was sleeping on. We moved to the couch in the living room, and eventually the shower. We fell asleep on the couch. The next morning, the wife got up to take a shower. We were pretty hungover, and the star wanted to shower as well. She stripped as she walked to the bathroom and got in the shower with my buddy's wife. When the wife got out of the shower, she told me that the star had requested my presence. After the shower, the four of us went and got brunch, and the star went on her merry way. All in all, one of the better nights of my life. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.